Hello and welcome. My cat is here. Let's see if I can get her walking in front of the camera so I can do her tail wiggle. I also have a kitten here and she just ran away. Don't rub up on that, Augie. I have another kitten here. They're gonna fight. Oh my god, they're totally gonna fight. Did you move this already? Yeah, they're gonna fight under the bed and cause problems for me. Hi, Dax. Yeah, for this video, I thought I would do something a little different, do like a little recap of the year just because I thought it'd be fun. I hope you guys agree. Not a ton happened this year, but also a lot happened. It feels weird to have like more than a page of notes over here. And I just thought it'd be nice to see like where we've come. And let's just get into it. I started the year off with 14 rats and I ended the year with 19 rats. I lost 5 this year. I've lost 51 in total and I've had 70 total. So in January, I attempted to do intros between my then group of 3, Fitz, Suitor, and Lamb, and then the Grabies, which is Ursula, Kelpie, and Thistle. And we got all the way to the end of intros and Thistle decided to be annoying and she started attacking Suitor and I ended up having to separate them. And so that was unfortunately a failed intro. At the same time, they were failing because my rats have a sense of dramatic timing. Most rats do. At the same time those intros were failing, like the same day they failed actually, I went and adopted Summer, Agatha, and Bonnet from a breeder up in Canada. I used to transport to get them down to me. And they were amazing immediately, thankfully. They were so bouncy and so sweet. They were the cutest little babies ever. I adored them. In February, I did unfortunately lose my rat Foggy. She was one of the weather girls. She was a beautiful, I think she was considered a Goody Martin. I've heard this type of rat called many different things. The most consistent thing I've seen recently is a Goody Martin, and I do think she was so gorgeous. I loved her. My kittens just knocked the remote down. I loved her so much. I did end up having to put her to sleep due to respiratory issues, heart failure mainly, that was causing respiratory issues. She was over 2 years old. I think she was 2 years and 8 months old. I'd have to check to be sure, but I think she was like 2 years and 8 months old. And she was the sweetest little girl, and I miss the weather girls all the time. But at the end of February, Polychrome turned 1 year old, which is amazing. She is one of my dwarfs, and she is just the sweetest little thing. I got her at 9 months old, so we celebrated her birthday very shortly after I got her. But I've had her now for over a year, which is great. In March, shortly after losing Foggy, I think it was like 2.5 weeks or something after losing Foggy, I did also have to let her sister Sunny go. Sunny was the last of my weather girls. The weather girls were some of my heart rats. They meant the world to me. Sunny was a beautiful ruby-eyed Siamese. I loved her so much, and her loss hit really hard. She had a tumor that was like tucked up under her ribs, and it was causing her pretty severe respiratory distress. And on top of it, after she lost her sister, Sunny just did not have the same zest for life that she did before. So with those two things, I decided it was time to let her go. So she was, I think, 2 years and 9 months old. Again, I would have to. Well, it was March, so actually, yes, she was 2 years and 9 months old. So I did have to let her go, but she did thankfully make it to a very ripe old age. Then at the same time that was happening, because again, my rats have a sense of dramatic timing, I was doing dwarf intros. I was introducing Summer, Agatha, and Bonnet to Mystic, Polychrome, and Glitch. And those intros were going so smooth. I don't even really remember those intros. They were like a blip. They were nothing. But because Sunny passed away, she left her friend Baker alone, and I then had to do intros with him as well. And I had to introduce him to the Grabies, who were some of my problem rats. Namely, Thistle is a problem rat, and those were difficult intros. It took me months to get everything back in this cage because every time I added something new, Thistle would have a little attitude and take it out on Baker. She loved to beat up Baker. Not like aggressively, she's just a little bit of a bully. And he took it well. I actually think part of him enjoyed it because Baker, you know, he's a man who knows what he likes, and I'm not going to judge him for that. In April, Polychrome developed a head tilt from an ear infection, which she still has today. Thankfully, I did get the ear infection under control, and it's no longer causing her issues, but unfortunately, head tilts can be permanent, which is why she now is cocked. May was a pretty big month because Mystic turned 1. She's another one of my dwarfs. I got her when she was, I believe, 7 months old. So she turned 1 not too long after I got her, and we celebrated that. And then the Gravies also turned 1. I've had them for, I got them when they were about 8 weeks old, so I'd had them for a while, but they also turned 1. And Baker was officially at the 2-year mark. He was in a rescue, so I don't know his exact birthday. But when I got him, he was 6 to 8 months old, which would put his birthday between March and May, so basically spring. So in May, he was officially at the 2-year mark. I unfortunately, however, had to say goodbye to my boy Fitz. He was 2 years and I believe 9 months old. Let me do the math on that. Yes, 2 years and 9 months old because his birthday was in August. And he just had severe HLD. It got to the point where he had like a little corner of the cage, and that's where he lived. And it was the best kindest thing to let him go. But he also made it to a ripe old age. He was a sweet old guy. He was the last of my Arizona rats. So if you don't know, shortly after starting this channel, I moved from Arizona to Texas. And he was the last of my Arizona rats. He made it quite far, honestly. He made it nearly 2 years in Texas. And when we moved, he was, how old was he? We moved. He was 10 months old when we moved. In May, I also adopted my quad, which is Blooper, Irving, Snail, and Gumshoe. And they are some of the sweetest rats. They are so interactive. They love to see, like, in the morning when I go to get them for free roam, they're just all on the door. They're just like, hello, we're ready. We're ready to dig up as much dirt as possible and get it all over your floor. And they are some of the sweetest rats I have. Irving is so kissy. She reminds me a lot of my past rat, Hex, and that makes me happy because I loved Hex so much. And unfortunately in May, it was also the start of Genemo's malocclusion. So that means it has been 7 months of every 3 weeks taking her in to get her teeth trimmed. She also had a papilloma on her tongue, which it was happening at the same time as the malocclusion. I don't know if the two are related. They could be, they could not be. To me, it feels a little coincidental if they're not related, but I do understand that doesn't mean it's not so. And it took us, I think, like 6 weeks to get the papilloma taken care of, maybe longer. It was like 3 rounds of cryotherapy on her tongue. It was not easy. But thankfully it hasn't come back. Hopefully it doesn't, because that was really hard for her to deal with. But yes, so she's been living with malocclusion for 7 months now. Oh, in case you don't know, malocclusion is basically where their teeth get overgrown and don't align, so you have to trim them down so that they can eat. In June, my girls, Lamb and Suitor, turned 2 years old, and they're still with me, so they're 2.5 now. But yeah, they turned 2 years old, and we celebrated that, which was great. And then Irving and Blooper got spayed for hormonal aggression. Now, Irving just had like small symptoms, but I was not going to mess around with that. I have dealt with so much hormonal aggression. I can see it so quickly and so easily that I just take care of it the second I see a sign of it. Blooper had very obvious hormonal aggression, and it would have just gotten worse and worse. So I went ahead and got them both spayed, and they are both quite happy now. They have been some of the easiest rats I've ever done intros with, which is saying something considering how their intros went, which we'll get into in a minute. In July, Glitch, another one of my dwarfs, turned 1 year old. I got her at 4 months old. Yes, I got her at 4 months old, so she was a little on the older side, but still kind of a baby when I got her. But she turned 1 year old in July, and we celebrated that with a pie that she tried to take the whole thing of. She just ran off with it. It was very cute. And then we're in August, and this is when I finally did intros with the quad, Lamb, and Suitor. Oh boy, those intros. So, weirdly enough, the quad didn't really have any issues. They were very willing to accept Lamb and Suitor, and Lamb wasn't much of a problem either. She had like 1 or 2 weeks where she was just very, very squeaky, where she would just protest squeak a ton. And it got to the point where it irritated Blooper, and Blooper was finally like, listen, I'm in charge, I need you to just accept that and calm down. But Suitor was the actual problem, because Suitor would not accept these girls for the longest time. These intros lasted so long. Suitor was just constantly trying to beat them up, constantly trying to show that she's in charge, even though she was not in charge. We all knew the writing was on the wall. Blooper was going to be alpha, and Blooper's a pretty good alpha, so I don't really know why Suitor resisted so hard, other than, you know, stubbornness. But yeah, I eventually did get through those intros, thankfully. In August, I also found the kittens, August and Betty. Cappy's the one who captured them, but I'm the one who found them. And, you know, it's been 4 months of pure kitten chaos. I haven't had kittens for, at that point, 11 years. So, like, I forget how crazy kittens are. And then there's the fact that August is an orange kitten. And she's insane. Everything you've heard about orange cats is true, at least in August's case. She's crazy. Betty, not so much. Betty's a more typical kitten. August has like a wire loose. I also celebrated 16 years of rat keeping in August, and she just flipped her sister over like a pancake. In August, I also celebrated 16 years of rat keeping, which is half of my life. So I've had rats for half my life. I've had rats longer than I've had any of my pets or even Cappy. So that's pretty neat. In September, I adopted Scylla, Lois Lane, and Aura. Unfortunately, Aura did not survive the transport. She did end up passing away about 5 hours after I brought her home. If you're interested in hearing more about that and kind of what happened, I have a whole video on that, which is just adopting 3 new dwarf baby rats. It's from September, so you can go see that. But Scylla and Lois Lane are she's bit her head. Scylla and Lois Lane are doing great. They have settled into their group, which I'll get into in a second. And they are very happy girls. Scylla I compare her to a slasher movie villain because she's relentless. She appears out of nowhere. She is supernaturally fast, and she will get you. And then Lois Lane is she's the bounciest girl. She loves to play. She'll just bounce all over the place. It is adorable, and I do love it. In October, I did intros with the dwarfs, meaning Scylla, Lois, and then my group of 6 dwarfs. And it was hard. It wasn't the worst one this year. I'd say the worst one this year is definitely Suitor to the Quad. Even though I had a failed intro earlier in the year, that one was still harder. Betty's just sitting with her paw up, threatening to hit August. She's just sitting there like, wah. Like she's asking the teacher to call on her. Anyway, it took, I'm gonna say, to this day, honestly, there's still some squeaky arguments that go on in there. But for the most part now, it's just because I have a few drama queens in there. Scylla especially, she'll just squeak up a storm anytime someone tries to put her in her place. They're not fights anymore, though. They're just tiffs, and I just kind of let it play out. Especially because I do have some just kind of mean rats in there. Like, Mystic is just kind of mean. Like, she got into a fight with Aggie this morning, and, like, she and Aggie normally get along just fine, but it was so mean. Like, they were all over the cage, and I had to, like, get up and go stop it because she was just relentless. We had a lot to celebrate in November because Gina and Joja turned 2 years old. They're my first dwarves, and I'm very happy that they made it to 2. And then Summer, Bonnet, and Agatha all turned 1, which is also pretty good because Summer and Bonnet unfortunately have some pretty severe respiratory issues. But thankfully they did turn 1. I still have them. They're still doing good. And then it was a gotcha day for Polly, Glitch, and Mystic, and then also Baker. So it was like a big month to celebrate. And then finally this month. So this month we got the kittens spayed, which was great because they were going into heat starting in October, and it was 6 weeks of them screaming. The second one stopped going into heat, the other one started going into heat, and it was just 6 weeks nonstop of kittens screaming in my hallway. And now they are spayed, they got their sutures out, and they are doing it fantastic. No more kittens screaming. They're still insane. August is about to pull my blanket off my bed. She has rolled herself up in it like a burrito. And she's rabbit kicking her way out. Okay. And then, unfortunately, I did, at the end of this month, very recently, because this week, actually, I did end up saying goodbye to Baker. He had pretty severe HLD, and it was past the point where I could help him with cage modifications or anything like that. So I did end up having to say goodbye to him. The Gravies are doing okay. They had a day where they were fighting a lot. The day after he passed away, there was a lot of fighting, and Ursula has been nesting an odd amount, which I think was probably some kind of stress response to Baker passing. But they are doing good. I do think that in a couple of weeks they will be back to normal, and a lot of the fighting was probably just them reestablishing their own dynamic without Baker in the mix, because I think he was probably I don't know if he was really high up in this mischief hierarchy necessarily, but he was a very calm boy. He didn't really start anything. He didn't really indulge in his annoyances, if you will. So I do feel like his calming presence being gone caused a little bit of tension, but they have, for the most part, worked it out. So with that, what are my plans for next year? And I don't have very many. I do want to get the Gravies some new friends because they are a year and a half old now, and there's 3 of them. So like, if one were to pass, there'd at least be 2 left. But I would still like to get them some friends just to make sure that this cage is secure and no one's going to end up alone, especially given their ages. A year and a half isn't like old, but it is senior level for rats. This is when things start to go wrong. And just for my own security and theirs, I'd like to get them some buddies. It'll probably be females just because it's a little bit easier for me to get females since I already have females. But that being said, I would like more male rats. Baker was my last boy, and I have an interesting relationship with male rats where like when they're young, they don't really vibe with me. But when they're older, like around the 16-month mark, they do vibe with me and they're just very sweet, cuddly. I love old man rats. They're just amazing. They're the best, honestly. So I would like to get some more boys at some point in the future, and I may look into doing that later this year. It really just depends on a lot of factors because, again, I'm probably going to end up getting girls for them, but we'll see. I have a pretty good track record with my boys and, like, their health and stuff. So, like, I've had 4 boy rats and their average lifespan, because I keep track of, like, how old everyone is. So I have averages of, like, my males versus my females, my pet store versus my rescue versus my breeder rats, my spayed females versus my unspayed females, just for like my own knowledge basically. And it helps with the channel too, so I can explain like how much longer one lives than the other with my personal rats. So I keep track of that, and I don't really talk about it too much because I understand some people might find it morbid, but if you are interested in that, let me know and I'll keep that in mind for other videos. But for my boys, their average lifespan is 26.1 months. So, like, that's pretty good, in my opinion. That's 2 years and 8 months, I believe, roughly. And so I am interested in getting more male rats for that and for the aspect of when they're, you know, older and cuddly. So, yeah. Those are really my only plans for next year. One's not even a solid plan, but yeah. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. All the fun stuff down below. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!